Hi everyone, it's Caitlin, and welcome back to Your Financial Journey. Many of us here in this community of hard workers and savers are working towards hitting that millionaire milestone, and it sometimes feels unrealistic and overwhelming, especially when we think that we'll never reach it. But what about the people who have already been successful? In today's video, we'll be looking at these millionaires. We'll cover how many Americans have $1 million or more at the moment, and we'll have a look at how many millionaires there are in the US overall, and also more specifically in the different states. And then we'll go over how they got there, and how you can get there too. Let's go! So, how many Americans have $1 million or more? Well, according to UBS in their Global Wealth Report, there are 23.8 million millionaires in the United States in 2025. When we compare that to the total population of the United States, which is around 340 million, that means that approximately 7% of Americans are millionaires. I personally think that's not a bad number for the proportion of millionaires in the US, and in any case, these almost 24 million US millionaires do account for 39.7% of the world's total millionaires. Let's compare the US to the other countries now. China comes in at a distant second place with 6.3 million millionaires, and given that China has a much larger population than the US, this means that only about 0.5% of the Chinese population has at least $1 million or more. The next names that round off the top 10 list are all reasonably close to each other. France, in third place, has 2.9 million millionaires, followed by Japan and Germany with each about 2.7 million, the UK with 2.6 million, and Canada with 2.1 million. Next come Australia with 1.9 million and Italy with 1.3 million, before South Korea is rounding off the top 10 with 1.3 million millionaires. Now, the Global Wealth Index also predicts that the number of US millionaires is increasing and expected to grow by over 5 million additional millionaires by 2029. But the whole population of the United States is a wide demographic group, so let's look a little deeper and examine the distribution of millionaires throughout different US states. While there are some discrepancies from different sources regarding the exact ranked order of the top 10 wealthiest states, in general, it's agreed that California is the U.S. state with the most millionaires, with around 8.51% of the U.S. millionaire households in 2019. New York, Florida, and Texas follow California with the second, third, and fourth highest number of millionaires. Now, the numbers for these states are relatively close to each other, and on some rankings, the order of these three states will be switched up, and the statistics fluctuate per year. After these four states, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Arizona, New Jersey, Ohio, and Massachusetts make up the rest of the top 10 states with the most millionaires. However, the millionaires in the US tend to be concentrated in big cities. So, let's look at the top 10 cities where millionaires live. New York City is consistently ranked as the US city with the most millionaires, about 350,000 as you can see here, which makes sense considering it's widely considered the financial capital of the world. After New York City, the Bay Area around San Francisco and Silicon Valley with its IT industry has a bit more than 300,000 millionaires, and Los Angeles comes third with a bit more than 212,000 millionaires. Chicago is fourth, with a significantly lower number of millionaires than the top three coastal cities, but it still has 120,000 millionaires. The rest of the cities that make up the top 10 US cities with the most millionaires all have less than 100,000 millionaires each. As you can see, these are, in order, Houston, Dallas, Seattle, Boston, Miami, Austin, and Washington, D.C. But don't worry if your state or city isn't in either of the top 10 lists. These are just the states and cities with the most millionaires, but that doesn't mean other places have none. In fact, even in Mississippi, the state with the least amount of millionaires, there are still 47,279 millionaire households, about 4.18% of the total households. In any case, we'll be getting into some tips about how you can also become a millionaire shortly. When looking at these statistics, we also have to consider what being a millionaire means depending on your location. In bigger cities and more expensive states, being a millionaire isn't the same as being a millionaire in a cheaper, smaller town. For example, even in the same state, being a millionaire will get you a lot further if you live in a rural town in upstate New York than if you lived on the Upper East Side of Manhattan in New York City. It's also important to note that $1 million isn't the same today as it was in the past. Because of inflation, a millionaire today can afford way less than a millionaire in the past would be able to. The Bureau of Labor Statistics calculates that having $1 million in 1955 is equivalent to having $11.4 million today. So clearly, $1 million is worth way less than it used to be. With that in mind, millionaires still have more money than the average person, and striving to become a millionaire is a worthwhile goal. So, let's look at some ways that you can become a millionaire and become a part of the statistics that we've just examined above. It's important to keep in mind that most of these millionaires we've talked about don't have the lavish lifestyles that we often envision for them. In fact, it's often almost the opposite. It's by saving and cutting costs that they are able to maintain and grow their millionaire status. Here are some fun facts about millionaires that can give some insight into how they manage their wealth. The majority of millionaires, 6 in 10, live in a house valued less than $500,000. Also, more than 50% of millionaires don't live in ultra-wealthy neighborhoods, but reside in neighborhoods where the average household income is $75,000 or less. In fact, nearly 1/3 of millionaires live in an area where home values are below the national median average. Millionaires also consistently stay away from debt, invest regularly, make savings a priority, and make sure to keep track of their finances. So, what can you do to become a millionaire? Well, there's no one way to become a millionaire, but here are 5 steps that you can follow to be one step closer to becoming a millionaire. First, budget. Give yourself spending and saving money for each month, or even each week, and stick to this limit. This way, you can actively make sure that you're not spending too much money, and that you're saving enough to build your wealth. Secondly, track your spending. Even when you have a budget, tracking your spending specifically by writing down how much money you spend on your Notes app, Google Doc, or even in a notebook is really helpful. It can put into perspective how much money you really do spend and motivate you to save more. Third, set realistic and attainable goals. Define how much money you would like to save or make in a certain time frame. When setting these goals, you want to make sure they're realistic. Keep in mind how much money you're making that week or month, and however much you have to pay for essentials. Fourth, invest what you save. Using the money you'll be saving from the above tips, you can build a small portfolio of investments that will bring you better returns than just cash. And investing early will help you earn even more in the long run. Compound interest and investments made over time will grow regularly over time, especially if you start early. But it's also never too late to start. Finally, be patient. Becoming a millionaire, or even just making more money than you currently do, is a process that takes time. In a survey, it was found that most millionaires became millionaires at around age 49, after an average of 28 years working towards their goal. So, what do you think about the amount of millionaires in the US? Were you surprised, or did you expect these numbers? Drop a comment below and let us know. And make sure to like and subscribe if you learned something new or found some of our tips helpful. And check out this video here if you want a deeper dive into whether you fall into the top 1%, 5%, 10%, or 25% of income and net worth in America. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.